everyone. Thanks for joining me today. My name's Jean, and I'm here at the Cochran-Rockville branch of the Pamunkey Regional Library. Today's program is going to be how to make your own journal. Journaling has been with us for centuries. It's a way for us to look into a moment of the past. Many famous people over the years have journaled. It allows us to look into what their lives were like and how very famous events occurred. Today, people do it, it's more of a meditative thing. It can be a fun way to look back at your past. I know I personally like to read back to mine, and sometimes they even provide a good laugh. So let's get started with the project. First, I'm going to be telling you what you need for supplies. So before we get started, let me show you what the finished product is going to look like. Today we're going to be doing this one, and as you can see, it has a tie closure, very cute, with some nice paper. You can also make them using, if you have a card that somebody's given you that meant a lot to you, or you just like the way it looks. This one's really easy too, and I have this one closed with just a little piece of elastic. Okay, so let's get started. First, we're going to talk about what supplies you need. All of these supplies should be items that most people would have in their homes. Obviously, you can see this is a cereal box. You can also use a thinner piece of cardboard, something that, like a real heavy piece of cardstock, something like that, but you want this to be fairly nice piece of thickness of weight. Okay, so you need your cardboard box or your favorite card. You're going to need paper for your pages. I used waxed linen thread. You can also use heavy-duty thread. I wouldn't use regular thread. That will be too thin and would more than likely break. So this is waxed thread. You're going to need either a paper cutter if you have it, or scissors work fine. Paper cutter just makes it a little bit easier. You're going to need some kind of glue. I prefer a glue stick, or you can use Mod Podge. A ruler is necessary. Thumbtacks or an awl, which is, just the pointy device. Then you're going to need some decorative paper, and to finish it off, either ribbon, elastic. I have a bunch of buttons here. An optional item is this. This is called a bone folder, and it just helps you get nice creases on your folds, but you can certainly use anything with a flat edge, like a ruler, anything that's firm and has a flat edge. Okay, so let's get started. So first thing you want to do is, if you're using some cardboard, you want to cut it into the size that you want. It can be any size you desire. These you can make it much larger, obviously. They also make really cute little mini ones that you can pop in your purse. But you want to cut your cardboard out. Obviously, your finished size will be half of what the entire piece of cardboard is, because you will be folding it in half. So once you've cut it and fold it in half, make a nice crease with either your ruler or your bone folder. The next thing you're going to be doing is cutting out your paper. Today I've used just regular computer printer paper, but you can certainly use, if you have some nicer paper that maybe has some texture. I've also found that like sketchbook paper works really well, has a little bit thicker weight. I just would stay away from anything as thick as like a cardstock, because it's not going to fold really well for you, and it just makes the process a little bit harder. So what you're going to do is today here I have 10 pages of paper. You want to cut them to be at least 1/4 inch. When your book is folded in half, you want it at least 1/4 inch smaller on around all 3 edges than your the cardboard size that you've chosen. And that's just so you don't see it hanging out of the edge of the book, obviously. So you're going to take, once you've got your pages cut, you're going to fold them in half. If you make sure the edges are nice and lined up so you get a nice good fold, and then take your ruler or your bone folder and fold them, create a nice crisp edge. Now, what you don't want to do is take each piece individually and fold it and then stick them all together, because what will happen is the edges on this edge won't meet as well as if you do it all together. It'll kind of be stacked like that, and you don't want to do that. So once you fold all your pages together, this is now called a register. However many pages you do, each one of these is a register. If you wanted to do a book, and obviously we had 10 pages folded in half, now we have 20. So this register has 20 pages. If you wanted your book to have more than 20 pages, you could certainly do more than 20 pages. If you want many pages, you would have to do multiple registers. And then you would have another one, a couple on top of this, and then that's a whole different stitch that you would have to learn to stitch it together. So today we're doing a simple stitch, trying to keep it simple. Okay. You folded all your pages together and created that nice crease. And what we're going to do now, you open up your register with the seam, the spine facing up, and you're going to mark your center of your seam. So where's my pen? My register is approximately 7 inches wide. So I'm going to make a mark at 3.5 inches. And then you want to go at least 1/2 inch in from your edge. So make a mark at each 1/2 inch in from your edges. As for your 2nd and 4th holes, it just has to be equidistant between your middle and your edge holes. So you can certainly eyeball it, you don't have to measure it. Make those marks there on your spine. So now you should have 5 holes, 5 marks, I'm sorry. I'm going to open the register up like this. Oops, let's try it this way, I'm sorry. And you're going to use your awl or your thumbtacks to punch through those marks and create a hole. When I put my thumbtacks in, I kind of like to give it a little bit of a wiggle to create a nice hole that our thread will go through easily. Okay. And you can pull those back out. Okay, you're going to fold back again at the seam. And you're going to take your register and put it to the seam of your cover. And you're going to just transfer marks from where those holes are to your cover. So I'm just making a little mark on the inside of the cover where those holes that I just made. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing with this. Create the holes in your cover. I'm using just an old bulletin board that I had. You could certainly just use a piece of cardboard or a cutting board, anything so that you're not, sticking your thumbtacks into a table or something. So put them all in. Wiggle. Okay. So now we have our cover and our register ready to be stitched together. The stitch we're going to be using today is called the Pamphlet Stitch. I've made a little diagram here to help me personally, and I mean I would probably do the same thing if I were you, just to help me with the actual stitching process. I labeled this inside and outside, so this is going to be inside of your register. This will be outside of the cover, and of course we have 5 holes, and this just shows me where I'm going to go in and where I'm going to go in and out of these holes. So you're going to want to thread your needle with your heavy-duty thread or your wax linen thread. You're going to take your register with the holes already made and kind of, you don't have to line it up exactly because once you start, it'll line itself up. Hole number 1, you're going to go down through the center hole. And down through the center hole of your book, your cover. You're going to pull it through, leave about a 3 or a 4 inch thread, little tail. Okay. And then from the outside, you're going to go in hole number 2. Up through the inside of the register. Pull it a little bit taut, but you don't want to lose your tail, obviously. Then you're going to go down through hole number 1, through the cover and out through the back. Okay. Now you're going to go through the back of the cover, back through hole number 2. See if I can get through there. Sometimes you might have to go through one and then find the hole on the other side. Again, I'm going to pull this tight. Okay. So now we're back up through the center. We're going to skip over our center hole and go down through the 4th hole to the back of the cover. And then we're going to go into the last hole, into the center of the register, down through this 4th hole, and then lastly you're going to go back into the center hole. And when I bring the needle up, I like to bring it up on the opposite side of where my tail is. Okay, you want to make sure all these are nice and tight before you tie your knot. So now I have a thread on either side of this center thread, and I'm going to tie it, knot over it to secure that thread. I do too. Okay, you can snip your thread now. I leave a little bit so it doesn't impair that knot there. Okay, so now you basically have your register sewn into your book. Now it's just a matter of decorating your book. So what I did, I have a nice piece of decorative paper, and I'm going to glue this on to my outer cover. You can always do this part before you sew your register in. Some people may find that easier because you won't have the paper in your way as you're covering your book. I tend to just like to do it this way. I don't think it's too much of a hassle to work it around my register, but you certainly can do this process that I'm going to show you right now before you actually do the sewing, because the stitches will show, obviously, if you do it first, but they're nice and clean, so I don't think it hampers the look of the journal. Okay, so you're going to place your book inside the paper, and you're going to want to do one at a time. The reason why you want to do this, instead of just gluing the whole thing and putting it inside the cover, your cover would not open properly. It would be too tight. So it's always best to do one side at a time. Smooth it out. And then we're going to flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so that's smoothed up nice. And now, as you can see, I cut my paper at the corners. And the reason you want to do that is so that when we fold our paper over, that we get a nice clean edge here. So you want to go right to the corner, maybe a little bit. I'm going to snip this corner off just a tad, because you don't want to cut it right exactly to the corner, just a little bit before you get to that corner. And that'll give you a nice little fold. So once you have your paper cut at the corners, you're going to take your glue stick and glue the edges. Fold this in. Do the other side. And then here's where it gets a little bit tricky, but I don't think it's usually that much of an issue. You have a ½ an inch here to your first hole that you can kind of work your paper under the register. Of course, if you wanted to decorate your cover before you sew your register in, you wouldn't have to worry about this at all. I don't think it's that big of a deal. So I just kind of slip it underneath and then glue it down. Do the other side. Put this underneath the register. Okay, so now you have your cover covered with your decorative paper. The next thing I like to do is finish up the look, so you just like clean up all the edges. So I had a piece of paper that I have cut here. I like to, usually you could certainly use the same paper that you had just for continuity or whatever. I like to usually do a contrasting paper. I just think it looks a little bit, gives it a little bit more fun to it. And if you want to use ribbon as your tie closure, this is where you would put that in. So I'm going to do that first. Just a little bit of glue, glue the ribbon in. And then glue this down. So you're gluing this right over your ribbon. And then we'll turn it around and do the other side. See if this fits first. Yep, thought I might have to cut a little bit of that off. Just make it fit to whatever. Just so you just want a little bit of the decorative paper showing. So that's good. And there you have it, your journal. I would, if you're using ribbons or really anything, I would wait, make sure that glue cures before you actually tie it, because you can pop them right out. But that's how you would, there's your finished project. And like I said, you can finish these different ways. You could have a little bit of elastic onto your back, and you could have a decorative button in the front as your closure. You can do the ribbon. You can, again, use the card or use just the elastic to do it that way. You could also attach some elastic this way, and that could be your closure also. So there are many ways you can do it, but these are, they make fun little gifts. You can make little tiny ones for purses, and give them to all your friends. They're a great item to have. I wanted to also show you that just for fun today, I brought in some of my journals to maybe hopefully get you interested in journaling. I'm an artist, so I like to draw in my journals. I call them visual journals. And so I like to, I record, a fun thing I do is I record the weather, the temperature, and whether it was sunny or rainy. You know, it's fun, that's fun to look back on. And then I try to just draw like a little something that happened that day. So that's kind of one of the ones that I've done. I also have done this nature journal where you can save leaves, you can then draw leaves, you can draw an acorn that you found, a picture of something in nature that you saw. You can even like put little photographs in there. So that's another fun way to journal. So this is the end product, and I hope you guys enjoyed this little program, and have a good day.